Hello, everyone. I'm Ed Milewski. Welcome to Midas Letter Live. James West will be with us shortly. We got a very big show today. Lots of guests. We got a feature at coming up shortly. The Rising Cost of Cannabis. Jim Hamilton, the CEO of Neptune Wellness, will be with us. And then we're going to talk to the CEO of JUJU, Steve Gormley. And moving right along, Keith Merker of WeedMD, CEO. Earlier I spoke to Clint Seukeran. He was the fortunate winner of the Brampton dispensary in Brampton, Ontario. And then finally, Matt Bottomley of Canaccord Genuity Corp will be with us. We're going to go right to the news with Ricky Gerwitz.
Thanks, James, and here are the headlines moving markets today. Wayland Group has entered into a letter of intent to sell 49.9% of the company's international portfolio of assets to International Cannabis Corp. Wayland will receive 300 million shares of ICC that trades under the symbol WRLD.U on the Canadian Securities Exchange at a deemed price of 43 cents US per share. Based on the issue price, once complete, this transaction will value Wayland's international business at approximately $258 million US. Wayland will sign a 3-year supply agreement with ICC that will supply ICC with 10,000 kilograms of EU GMP certified product per year for a total of 30,000 kilograms during the term. ICC will gain access to Wayland's German advisory board to help with production and distribution strategies, branding campaigns, as well as the continued penetration of new cannabis and CBD markets and verticals through Cosmo Holdings. Wayland's international business will be held in a subsidiary which will be jointly owned by Wayland and ICC. ICC shares will not be distributed to Wayland shareholders for a period of not less than 6 months from the closing date of the transaction. Canopy Growth Corporation announced yesterday afternoon it has been granted a license by New York State to process and produce hemp. Canopy Growth will establish large-scale production capabilities within the hemp industrial park focused on hemp extraction and product manufacturing within the United States. Depending on board approval of a specific site, Canopy Growth intends to invest between 100 to 150 million US dollars in its New York operations, capable of producing tons of hemp extract on an annual basis. Tilray Inc. and Authentic Brands Group, an owner of a portfolio of global lifestyle and entertainment brands, announced that they have signed a long-term revenue sharing agreement to market and distribute a portfolio of consumer cannabis products within AGB's brand portfolio in jurisdictions where regulations permit. AGB has a global retail footprint of over 100,000 points of sale and more than 4,500 branded freestanding stores. ABG's portfolio generates approximately $9 billion US dollars in retail sales annually. Canna Royalty Corp has signed a binding term sheet with Alternative Medical Enterprises, LLC, to convert the company's 3.5% royalty interest on the sale of AltMed's MUV branded products into a combination of cash and 125 units of AltMed's equity, raising Origin House's aggregate equity position in AltMed to 5.1%. Charlotte's Web Holdings Inc. released its 2018 harvested hemp results. The company reported more than a 10 times growth in harvested hemp compared to its 2017 growth season. The U.S.-grown hemp will be processed through proprietary extraction methods to create whole plant hemp extract that will be used in Charlotte's Web products for sale in 2019 and 2020. Australis Capital Inc. has invested $3 million US dollars in Folium Biosciences, the largest vertically integrated producer, manufacturer, and distributor of hemp-derived phytocannabinoids in the United States. Folium also owns and operates the largest phytocannabinoid extraction and purification facility in the United States, with plans for a new pharmaceutical division and the completion of their Canadian facility in 2019. Organigram Holdings Inc. is pleased to announce it is the first in the Canadian cannabis industry to introduce Integra Boost packaging technology into its entire line of dry flower products from 1 grams to 15 grams. The new packaging will help to maintain freshness, extend shelf life, and enhance the overall customer experience. Province Brands of Canada announced it has signed a letter of intent with the Canadian Hemp Farmers Alliance, establishing CHFA as a supplier of hemp stocks to the Province Brands. The agreement secures favorable pricing for Province Brands to acquire hemp stalks, stems, and roots. Flower One Holdings Inc. announced its first brand partnership for cannabis product fulfillment in Nevada. Flower One and Rapid Dose Therapeutics Inc. entered into a definitive agreement on January 10, 2019, pursuant to which Flower One has been granted license to manufacture, distribute, and sell RDT's QuickStrip, proprietary delivery technology for the cannabis market in Nevada. Flower One expects to produce and distribute QuickStrip for the medical and adult recreational cannabis market in Nevada by spring 2019. Grown Rogue International Inc. announced the signing of a memorandum of understanding to expand its brand and products into Michigan. This will be done through a strategic partnership with established local cannabis operators and investors. The expansion is anticipated to initially include 2 retail dispensaries, referred to as provisional centers in Michigan, a 19,000 square foot indoor cultivation and processing center in Detroit, and an interest in a 28-acre parcel located in the northern portion of the Lower Peninsula, which can be used for cultivation. And that's your news for today.
Thanks, Ricky. I am here now with Sean Dollinger, CEO of Namaste Technologies Inc., trading on the TSX Venture under the symbol N. Sean, welcome back and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Great seeing you.
You too. Sean, your stock was under quite a bit of pressure in the last part of last year, as were most of the stocks, as was the broader market. You've come out of the end of last year and into the new year with quite a strong reversal. And what is it that's going to drive the stock higher in 2019 in terms of corporate milestones achieved?
And when we speak to our team, right, it's always about keeping our head down. Our e-commerce platform is what's got us here, right? We started as Namaste Vapes. We thought it would be a side business, just selling a few vaporizers a day, and that was just 3 years ago. Right. And we started selling hundreds, thousands, leading B2C vaporizer company in the world. But now, as you know, we're so much more. We're your everything cannabis store. So whether you're looking for vaporizers, cannabis, CBD, anything of that nature, we're your one-stop shop. So that's really what we're constantly keeping our heads down, building out the platform. And for fun, on my flight, as you know, I just landed about an hour ago, I was looking at the top 8 companies in the world, right? And as far as market cap goes.
Sure.
And I'm sure you know this, but 7 of the 8 are technology companies. And the only one that's not is Berkshire, and their main holding, their #1 holding, is Apple.
Right. Okay.
So it's really interesting to see that and see where the big LPs are at, you know, like how fantastic their grows are and everything of that nature. But we bring it all together with the technology. So that's really what we'll keep our heads down and focus on in 2019.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. So I've been shopping on the Ontario Cannabis Store, and I found that it's easier for me to access cannabis more reliably and at the same cost, more or less, through my medical affiliation with the industry, and particularly using Namaste MD, I found that I've actually got a personal consultant now who can, you know, I can talk to about all of the LPs as opposed to just one. So there are aspects to that business model that I think are going to be very powerful in terms of market share agglomeration over time. The focus on becoming the, you know, sort of the marketplace of cannabis equipment and technology is not something that anybody else is doing, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I haven't been able to find anyone out there. And yesterday when I went over to Aurora Sky and I got this tour, right, and I'm looking around and it's incredible what Terry's built with his team, his vision and everything they've done. And then to think that other people are still coming up with license, and then you think to yourself, well, how am I going to be able to beat them or be able to get any traction? And then I go over to Radiant Technologies that focuses on oil production, and they have this microwave technology that's incredible. And I'm like, how would somebody compete with that? And the nice thing about Namaste, where we've positioned ourselves, is this e-commerce platform. So when I hear people say, oh, well, we could do this, you know, maybe in-house for 20 million or 30 million and they're worth $500 million, I say, then why hasn't it been done, just like you've said?
Right.
And even Walmart, who had all the money in the world in their bank account, they had billions of dollars cash, they still went and bought Jet.com. Why is that? If it was so easy to do what we do, why is everyone not doing it?
Right. Well, obviously it's not that easy. And, you know, I've followed Namaste from before being a public company. And I remember when you guys were first in the business, you were already at that time kind of the #1 online destination for vape gear in particular. Does vape gear still sort of underpin your technological inventory, so to speak?
Well, it's incredible. I remember meeting you at that show over at the university, and that was the first time we met, and I showed you this vaporizer we were working on. And you know, that's still the core of our business, is the e-commerce platform, due to the global expansion of allowing vaporizers to be sold, because it doesn't necessarily need to be used for cannabis. It could be used for other aromatherapy items. So when we meet as a management team, really our focus is still on that core platform. But once you're bringing the traffic, and you know all about traffic and how important it is, without that, you really have nothing at the end of the day. So our main focus is still driving it all there, but then being able to add products like cannabis now in Canada, and we'll be looking to replicate the model that Canada's allowed us to develop here globally, with UK being the next one on the list.
Interesting. Is the marketplace for cannabis gear and technology limited in any way by the rules governing the regulation and sale of cannabis itself?
There's obviously a lot of different rules everywhere we go, and one thing about Namaste being in 20 countries around the world, we really need to understand the ins and outs of the regulations and the rules. For example, there's a lot even around CBD, topicals here in Canada. We can't really sell creams yet or anything of that nature. Food is something we truly believe in. We're working with Pete Evans. He's the #1 celebrity chef in Australia, developing a brand called Heal, Healthy Eating Living. But all of these things, we need to take our time. And when I speak to people, I always tell them this isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. And I know we're building the right foundation at Namaste. And that's what we'll remain focused on, and to keep building out the platform, as you mentioned.
You bet. The you know, the whole situation surrounding CBD, I mean, it's now descheduled in the United States from the FDA as no longer Schedule 1, now it's Schedule 5. Do you see the same thing happening for cannabis products that are THC heavy, and the easing of regulations that currently restrict the sale of cannabis on a retail and on a wholesale level to a select few corporate participants?
Yeah, I think that as time goes on, the laws will keep getting more clear. Like, I still speak to experienced people, and then there's still a little bit of confusion, you know, is the CBD from hemp okay to cross borders in the US? Is it not? CBD from cannabis obviously is not. And even in a space where they've went ahead and moved forward to try to relax the laws, it's still confusing. And even here in Canada, people are confused around some of the laws. You know, what do you mean that it can't be in a cream? Why do you need to add it yourself? And so I think over the next couple of years, even though we all want to get to the point where everything is legal and 100% ready to sell, we got to take the time, because from our standpoint, we're a publicly traded company. We want to be licensed all around the world. It's not just Canada and the UK, but Australia and anywhere else that we're able to move towards, at the end of the day, to help people and use our AI and machine learning to educate the buyers and all of that type of good stuff. Sure. So, you know, I think for 2019, we've really got to study and see where the opportunities lie.
Yeah. So being a technology company, your business model is different from that of a LP, in that LPs are going to ultimately be competing on price of a commodity at some level. That is never going to be Namaste's limitation.
Correct. And they focus a lot on B2B. Like, when you look at the revenues that a company like Canopy is putting up, it's a lot of bulk sales, right? $20 million orders. Right. Namaste doesn't have anything like that. We have the relationship with a customer, where in a space like ours, where advertising and marketing is so challenging, But now we're bringing the customer to our website. Think about the power that Namaste has to educate, to influence, to speak, to share in one database. Like again, I've brought it up on your show. Namaste has roughly 1.6 million plus customers around the world.
Wow.
The largest LP in Canada has 200,000 customers.
Right.
So think about the information that we have, and I'm not talking about names or credit card numbers. I'm speaking about, you know, the buying habits, what people spend time looking at when they go buy a premium vaporizer. Aren't you going to want to show them premium cannabis?
Right.
And if they buy a vaporizer that specializes in oil, aren't you going to want to show that oil first when they're shopping? So these are the different things that Namaste will be working on in 2019 and the future.
Okay, well, it sounds like it's going to be an exciting year, and we'll have to have you back frequently. Sean, thanks for joining me today on short notice.
Yeah, thank you so much.
When we come back now, we're going to take a quick look at the idea about, well, I can't tell you. I'll let the screen do the talking.
With the Canadian cannabis market still finding its feet, consumers seem to be hesitant to move on from the illicit channels that have proved so reliable for so long, especially when prices for legal weed are higher with no discernible increase in quality. So what is the difference in prices between the illicit market and the legal market? We spoke to business expert Brad Poulos of Ryerson University to find out.
So obviously there's a big difference in the price between, say, oil and dry herb, but we generally use the flower price as the kind of reference price. This sort of planning figure that everybody uses is the kind of $8 or $9 a gram for retail cannabis that's legal, and somewhere in the kind of $6 or $7 a gram range for illicit cannabis. There's no question the illicit channel is not going anywhere anytime soon. It really comes down to a couple of things, and it's not just price. One is, if you're a cannabis retailer, especially the private ones in the West today, and you've got this scarcity of cannabis, why in the world would you offer it at a low price? The second thing is that the quality of the cannabis and the variety of products available in the illicit market is much greater than what's available in the legal market. So again, why would a cannabis consumer who has access to great pricing and much better quality and selection, why would they go to the legal market?
Obviously, the underground market offered no consumer protection in regards to product testing and regulation. But do consumers really prefer buying cannabis from a regulated source?
I think one of the only arguments, frankly, for legal cannabis today is the fact that it's tested for pesticides and microbials and that sort of thing. Some of the illicit market does that as well. So, frankly, given the paucity of products available and their higher price, I think one of the only arguments for buying from the legal market is the fact that it's tested and presumably safer than at least what's available on average in the illicit market.
So it seems like, for now at least, the underground market still has space to thrive under the newly legalized system. As supply evens out and consumers become more confident in the product being supplied through legal channels, we may see more people opting to purchase cannabis from legitimate sources. Back to the studio.
I have the chart up on my NDI. And now I'm here with the CEO of Neptune Wellness, Jim Hamilton. Jim, welcome back.
Jim, the gyms are together once again, right?
Jim squared.
That's right.
Of course.
And you've remodeled since I've been here.
Well, you know, I did have some work done, and it's, oh, you mean the
That's right. Well, I noticed the drum set. Is it going to be the Today Show soon? Are you going to have a band going?
Actually, there is going to be a live entertainment component. Think of Jimmy Kimmel meets cannabis online.
Good. I'm all in for that.
Excellent.
But thanks for having us back.
Of course. Yeah. Jim, on January 7th, you announced that you had received a license to process cannabis from Health Canada, kind of a key milestone given your business model. Why don't you tell me the significance of all that?
Jim, it's a really great thing. As I was here, I think back in mid-December, we talked about convergence of commercial agreements with great companies like Canopy, the site readiness, and also the license, and to a degree the frustration that goes with the license. I think we came in around 19 or 20 months, which is not as good as some, but a lot better than others. But we're so happy to have it behind us, and now it's full speed ahead with commercialization.
Okay, so now how is that going to change change the immediate sort of revenue picture for 2019 for Neptune going forward?
Well, I think maybe just to talk a little bit about the fundamentals, Jim, I think as I see them, we see them at Neptune for the business, I think to be in the extraction, purification, formulation side of the equation is a very powerful place to be. I think when you look at many developed markets, you see anywhere between 60 and 80% of the products based on some kind of extracted formulation. When you look at the pending legislation with Health Canada now, opening things up to topicals and concentrates and consumables, edibles, I mean, this is all great news. I think the demand profile domestically here in Canada will be quite robust. And I think when you look at the demand profile for extracts, not only in the United States, but rest of the world, it will be very robust. For us, I mean, we've talked about 200 metric tons of extraction capability being online by the end of March, construction complete, et cetera. But I think it's important for your viewers to know that we also have the capacity to go to 6,000 tons in our facility. It's really a world-class, world-scale facility, and we're very excited by that. And we think the wind is behind our backs, and we're looking forward to 2019 in a really great way.
Yeah, you bet. Okay, so now the product focus for Neptune is going to be on wellness products, obviously, and that kind of puts you in a different place relative to the sale of THC.
Not really, Jim. I mean, I hate to say we're agnostic. We're actually very passionate, but our model is fundamentally B2B. Okay. And we will, and an example is our long-term contract with Canopy. I mean, the end use for the products that we work with Canopy will go into a variety of things, from medical to beverages. And so we will engage and work with companies, great companies, in any way that makes sense for them. We are a B2B company first and foremost.
So the core competency then of Neptune is the extraction and production of pharmaceutical and food grade cannabinoids as ingredients.
Yeah, I mean, we've been doing it for 20 years. I mean, we have a facility. I think you showed a video of it in our last segment with your group here.
I think we'll show it again.
Okay, but it's a CGMP food Health Canada food approved facility.
Right.
Now cannabis approved facility.
Sure.
And that facility is there to collaborate, work, and support with great brands. And those brands clearly will be existing licensed producers, but I think as legislation and markets evolve in future, it will be food producers and other great marketers of products that we'll collaborate with and work with to help support their brands in this great new segment.
Sure, you bet. So in terms of the feedstock for your extracts, you are somewhat reliant or completely dependent upon the LP universe as it exists today?
You know, Jim, I think that's a really interesting question. When we first started talking about our model, a year and a half ago in New York, I remember the kind of emotion I received about not being a cultivator. My God, how can it be? We have no competence in cultivation. We're not cultivators. We think we're good partners for cultivators. But initially, we see ourselves collaborating, Jim, with LPs, where we will help them and process their materials. And as the raw material landscape improves with new capacity coming online, I think that model may change a little bit, but initially that will be where it's at. And I think we also have to consider the whole CBD market here as well, Jim, and I know this is increasingly part of the conversation and recent announcements with Canopy, et cetera, but again, being wellness, nutrition products people, we're quite struck by the size of the CBD business right now in the United States. It's greater than the vitamin E market today, and I think it's going to be greater than omega-3 fish oils very, very soon. Wow. And we will see demand through the CBD business development. I think that'll be quite striking, and it is quite positive for not only marketers but also those in the extraction part of the equation.
So is it the game plan then for Neptune Wellness to be the brand that consumers see, or is it to white label the ingredients and let the brand take over?
Jim, our model is what it's always been, which is to support great marketers with the infrastructure to get them going. So we are a B2B company supporting other LPs in this business, and brands, by the way, multinational brands who will choose to participate in this business in some way or fashions.
Right. The brand aspect is very interesting to me, because you've got all these, you've got like Green Growth Brands, who's coming up with a pedigree of creating great brands in-store experiences as destinations, and you've got the Tilray partnership with Authentic Brands, where they're actually going to write checks to the Authentic Brands in the hopes that they actually are able to project Tilray's brand.
Yeah, look, Jim, I think a lot of us feel a little bit constrained within the regulatory frame that exists in Canada today. I think we should expect that, like a lot of businesses, with confidence and with societal acceptance, that will liberalize with time. But let's not get too myopic about Canada. This is a global phenomenon, and we will see global consumer brands at play here, I believe, over the long term. Hence the interest of I think, many consumer product companies looking at this business right now. And I think ultimately when we think about the vertical, if you will, of what is extraction and purification and formulation, I think what's really important there is there will be a very robust demand, I think, over the near-term horizon because of all the reasons we discussed. But I think ultimately we're going to see differentiation be a huge driver in terms of the collaboration agreements and the alignments that exist that will come in the whole supply chain. So when I mean differentiation, I mean ultimately it's not enough to do extraction, but we have to look at delivery systems, we have to look at the clinical science, like we did with our omega-3 krill business. There is a great analogy here between nutrition products, Jim, in so much as the greatest margin and the greatest markets, in my experience, is where there's a conversation with the consumer. And this business, there's a conversation, whether that's a practitioner or whether that's at the retailer. And where there's a conversation, you can help those retailers be successful, or those practitioners, with differentiated delivery forms, greater bioavailability, clinical research, et cetera. We think, and that's what we're working on today, and our recent agreement and announcement with Lonza is an example of us executing against that.
Sure. As a non-cultivator, non-producer, you are never going to be held hostage to the idea of commodity price competition. And I think for the shareholders of Neptune, that's got to be a very bright and warm place to be relative to all of the other LPs who at some point are going to be competing on commodity price levels.
Look, I think healthy paranoia is essential to any business, Jim. I mean, economics ultimately trump. I think we can debate on the timeline. I think the demand profile for extracts, purification, formulation will be very robust in the near term, not only domestically but globally. And the differentiation, the separation, the winners and losers long term will be on the science and delivery forms, et cetera. And that's what we're committed to. So.
Well, sounds fantastic, Jim. Well, I can't tell you how excited I am about 2019, both for you and for me. So thanks very much for joining me again. We'll come back to you very soon.
And Jim, thanks. Will we see the band next time?
Well, cross your fingers. Could be. It's taking a little while for all the equipment to arrive, and we don't even know if we have people who can play them yet. So we'll see.
We'll work on it. I have a great confidence. Jim, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, coming up next is the answer to our trivia question, and then we're going to have Steve Gormley will be joining us from International Cannabrands.
Time for a little musical Q&A. Anyone who listens to music knows that almost every song is about falling in love, falling out of love, looking for love. Whether you're a man or a woman, a rocker or pop or country fan, the stories are all the same. Broken hearts and boots under the bed and so on. But did you know that there are plenty of songs that are written about a little lady named Mary Jane? Yeah, for some artists, their love of cannabis spilled into their songwriting. So here's our question for you. Of these 5 songs, which one is not written about marijuana? So it's which one is not written about marijuana? Is it 1, Black Sabbath, Sweet Leaf? 2, the Steve Miller Band, The Joker? 3, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, You Don't Know How It Feels? 4, The Beatles, Gotta Get You Into My Life? Or 5, Deep Purple, Smoke on the Water? We'll have the answer later in the show.
Welcome back.
Hey Ed, it's good to see you.
Nice to see you.
Happy New Year.
When were you here last? About a month ago?
Yeah, it was probably just before Christmas.
Right. Yeah, you're looking good.
I feel good.
You're working out a lot, I think.
I got to keep it together.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, got to be.
So give us a little update.
So
you're busy as hell. I know you're busy as hell.
We're busy as hell, and it's been great.
Perfect.
This was the worst December since 1931.
I just read that.
Yeah.
They were talking about, sell-offs and et cetera, and this was...
We were one of only a couple of companies that were actually able to close institutional capital in the month of December.
Yeah. Now, no, you did your funding.
We did our funding.
Yeah.
It's been a rolling close. We're actually closing out at the end of this week.
Okay. Okay.
And the great news is that the Levita Verde deal is complete. We actually announced last Monday the closure of that acquisition of 51% of Levita Verde, and now we've taken that family of brands in-house, and we're deep into integration meetings and hiring marketing staff and sales staff to support the new distribution deals. I don't know if you're aware, but I also announced a week ago Thursday, it'll be 2 weeks on Thursday, the closure of a deal with Northern Lights, which is a formidable distribution company and network in the California market for JUJU Royal. And so now my brands are going to be able to work together. We're leveraging distribution across companies. We're bringing on marketing support and sales support to be able to drive revenues in both companies. And as I announced a couple of weeks back, we're 15% above our revenue projections at Levita Verde, and we're really excited and focused on our next acquisition.
Yeah, so just maybe remind us of some of the more salient points for Levita Verde. Just
right, Levita Verde is a family of brands because we really believe the multiples in cannabis will be lodged in brands. Right, and we're feathering in businesses that support vertical integration, like cultivation and manufacturing, certain service businesses like the Riotous acquisition that we did in August. We are looking at creating a company that's predicated on earnings and EBITDA and acquisitions. We are a middle market brand roll-up play, and nobody's doing what we're doing. We're only buying profitable brands that are EBITDA positive, and we're rolling them up so that when that time comes, when people are looking for earnings in the market, we'll have the fundamentals to withstand a nuclear winter.
I know some of the people at Gravitas, and Vikas Ranjan, for instance, was on the show.
I'm seeing him later today.
Yeah, Vikas is, I really like him, and we're talking about other things, but we talk about JUJU together, and they're good long-term sponsors.
Yes,
as you probably have figured out.
They've been a fantastic
partner. And if you can, keep showing them. Good.
They've been a fantastic partner from day one. I met Vikas over the summer when I joined the team, and
I think we ran into each other.
Yeah, I think I introduced you to him.
Yeah. Well, I knew him from before because about a year and a half ago I met him on. He's involved in that fintech company.
Yes. Yes.
We're in fact, Vikas was on the show talking about Mint
I mean, he's
a real gentleman.
And one of the most formidable intellects on Bay Street, right?
Big macro thinker, absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah. And he was a big part of the reason, and Gravitas and Canaccord were a big part of the reason that I joined this organization and brought my team in to turn around International Cannabrands. I knew I had their support. They believed in this vision of a roll-up. They loved the idea of building a cannabis company based on fundamentals.
Yeah.
And they drank the Kool-Aid alongside with us and recognized the value of the JUJU Royal brand that was already housed inside International Cannabrands. And helped us raise the money to acquire the 51% of Levita Verde that we presently own.
Well, you know what? I think sometimes the first deal you do is the hardest one.
Yeah.
But now that you've got some traction.
Well, Ed, I'm going to toot the horn of my team here and point out that in July we came on and we were at somewhere around 4 cents. We eliminated a pref share structure that made the company impossible to finance. We cut the .A. We got pref shareholders to return 90% of their shares to Treasury, and we locked up the other 10%. We acquired a great service business in Riotous, 25%. We restructured the Levita Verde transaction and repriced it to make it market friendly. We rewrote the business plan at JUJU Royal and quintupled distribution, and have added distribution and more sales and marketing since then. And coming up shortly, you're going to hear about our next target. That's you should expect that soon.
And so you've got to think there's got to be a lot of things out there
right.
that you can do.
Yeah.
There's a lot of small little operations. I mean, if you can sort of aggregate them and keep doing what you're doing, this is what CEOs get paid the big money for, right?
Well, we have a really specific profile.
Yeah.
And funny, I was at Canaccord today with Gary Singh, and I sat down and I talked to him about our strategy. There are so many strong middle market brands that are profitable.
Gary.
But what I look for in a management team, I want young and hungry. I want women and men in their mid-30s, early 40s who are seasoned enough to know how to run their businesses and operate at a reasonable profit margin, but still young enough and energetic enough to want to go along for the ride. A lot of cannabis industry professionals that are close to my age are exhausted, and they're looking to take money off the table. We're finding that rare combination of a successful operator who has a vision for what a Canadian public platform can provide.
Yeah, and the fact that you're, you sort of subscribe to a pretty clean lifestyle.
I do.
I know you do.
Thank you.
Listen,
I'm open about that.
No, you know what? And I know, because we've chatted, and I have my moments and blah, 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 but I'll tell you something.
That's a great point.
You know what? I'll tell you something. The energy that you have is very, very obvious, and it's contagious. And
thank you, Ed.
Congratulations, because I know you can burn the midnight oil.
Yes.
If that's the right saying. I don't want to.
I'll say this. I did quite a bit of research in college, and I'm Irish and Scandinavian.
There you go.
We know what that means when it comes to the drink.
And you're a polyglot. You speak many languages.
Chinese, Russian, German, French, Portuguese.
Oh, this is good. This is good. Look, it's a long-term game. It's just not about. And if you're getting some things done, and you can get more things done. And the more things you get done, and you don't want to. Cash flows. Listen, without cash flow, if you're spending more than what's coming in, it's ruinous.
That's right. That's right. That's why we're only focused on profitable brands. Now, JUJU Royal isn't there, but it will be by the second quarter of 2019.
No,
it was a solid brand. It needed to be refocused on millennial males. We've done that.
Yes.
We've just come out of the gate with brand new packaging, really sleek and sexy packaging that appeals to millennial males, providing them a quality product at a lower market price point, and we've quintupled distribution. So we're going like gangbusters.
Yeah.
And we're just elated with how the market is receiving our products. And if you looked at where we've come from the bottom in December, it's been a steady climb from 7 to 11 cents.
And listen. This market can be nutty.
Yeah.
And it can make you think that you're doing some great things, and it's just the stock market moving around. But I think the stock's basing nicely here. It's starting to show some bubbling, and we're probably very close to seeing another one of those.
I like slow and steady. I know a lot of people in this space like the hockey stick trajectory.
I know.
But we're, again, we're this odd combination of being a penny stock focused on fundamentals.
You just remind the public how many shares are outstanding right now?
300 million.
300 million? So it's $30 million market cap.
Correct.
Yeah. Now, I often think of the fable of the tortoise and the hare.
Yeah.
So I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, we've moved at a hare's pace with a tortoise's mentality.
Yeah.
Right? So we've been methodical about our strategy and executing against our vision and business plan. But we've moved really quickly. I mean, look at where we've come since July.
I take my hat off to you.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
But I mean, you're a clean liver. You have a clean liver.
I have it took its hits early on.
Yeah, well,
I haven't had a drink in 12 years.
Yeah, I know that. Good for you.
And I'm very focused on this business. And there's a lot of people in the recovery community, oddly, that are in this business. Like the alcohol business. It attracts all kinds, right? And having a clear head and a good family to go home to, and my wife and 4 kids. I'm blessed. So
they're all well, I take it.
Everybody's well, and I'm the luckiest man I know.
Yeah. Okay. So we expect to see some more things happening.
Yes. We're going to be executing against this plan to continue to acquire profitable middle market assets that are solid brands in the regions and territories they serve, with really strong consumers and loyal consumers, and young management teams that are hungry and get the opportunity of being part of a Canadian public company that has the currency to roll up synergistic businesses that we can double and triple.
Yes.
And leverage across the board. I mean, that's really what we're about.
Okay. Well, look, we'll leave it there. You're always welcome to come back.
Thank you.
And you will be back.
I will.
And
you guys are my favorite.
Yeah,
well, my favorite Canadian.
Yeah. Yeah. So okay, well, all the best. And
thank you.
All right.
Thank you. You're my favorite Polish Canadian. Dziękuję.
Okay. Anyway. So the trivia answer, what we asked the question earlier, what's the trivia answer?
All right, earlier in the show, we talked about songwriting and told you that while many songs are about love lost, there are quite a few that are written about pot. So which one of these 5 are not cannabis infused? 1, Black Sabbath Sweet Leaf. 2, Steve Miller Band, The Joker. 3, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, You Don't Know How It Feels. 4, The Beatles, Gotta Get You Into My Life. Or 5, Deep Purple's Smoke on the Water. Well, the answer is 5, Deep Purple's Smoke on the Water. Their lyrics actually tell a true story about a fire in Montreux, Switzerland in a casino, and that happened while the band was visiting. All the others are about the leafy green stuff. When it came to Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, MTV and many radio stations aired a censored version of You Don't Know How It Feels, taking the word roll out of Let's Roll Another Joint, although a version replacing the word roll with hit was also made. And as for the Beatles, Gotta Get You Into My Life is a homage to the Motown sound, with a colorful brass instrumentation and lyrics that suggest a psychedelic experience. According to Paul McCartney, it's actually an ode to pot.
Hey, y'all, how about that? Now,
Yeah.
my heart is warm. The cockles of my heart are warm slightly to hear that Mr. Gormley is got firing on all cylinders.
The thing about the guy is that he's got tons of energy.
Yeah.
And he lives a
very rigid lifestyle.
And no
sober. Well, no booze, no drugs.
Listen, a guy like that is working for you, for the shareholder.
Yeah.
24 hours a day.
Yeah.
Unlike some people that are,
No, I called him on during the Christmas break, and he was in. Where was he? He was in some place like, I think it was in Israel, and it was 4 a.m. there.
Right.
And he took the call anyways, even though it's like the holidays.
Right.
It's 4 a.m.
Right.
And he's overseas.
Right.
Which was impressive. So that's why I continue to hold out hope for the
I think
International Cannabrands story.
I want to point out the chart is starting to show nice basing activity.
Yes.
So next time we get a
free basing. Sorry, I couldn't resist.
Free Willy, free basing.
Free Willy.
Nothing wrong with a little Free Willy.
Free Willy. That's like no underwear.
That's Commando.
That's Commando. That's Sideshow Bob.
Okay, now, what are we going to talk about?
Now, let's talk about some other serious business. I got some serious business to talk about here.
Are you a businessman?
I give you the business.
I'm a businessman.
You're going to get the business.
All right.
Anyways, so Sean Dollinger was here, and I saw some very snarky remarks about him in the comments. And I just want to say, snarky people, that you might have to be eating a little bit of humble pie.
Humble pie?
Pretty soon here.
Humble pie.
I'd be very careful about talking negatively about Namaste. They have some very big things happening, which of course we can't discuss yet. And I say that because we are going to make Namaste one of our main projects for the year.
Okay.
And the reason for that is because I have been following this company since they first came to town, and they were an online vape company. And what they built from those humble beginnings without becoming an LP is rather impressive.
Was Christian there at Namaste at one point?
Christian Scamina was no, it wasn't. Was it Christian? I thought it was. That's going to sound bad if Christian's watching.
Well, you know what?
I know that Darren Collins raised some money for them. I think he.
They almost look alike, so but you can interchange them.
I wasn't going to say that.
They share similar
physical characteristics. They both have beards. They're both never mind.
They're both men.
Yes, they're both men, and
they're good friends. They're good friends.
Good point.
Yeah,
good point. When you see them together, it's like Jesus Christ. I don't know. Were they twins? No. We're going too far.
Okay. Let's just talk about La Markets.
Yeah. What do you think about Tilray dropping $27 today? $23.
You notice how this is, and I can be blunt here, right?
You can be blunt, Ed.
So they say that the big shareholders aren't going to sell their stock until next year or the last half of this year.
Well,
and maybe that caused the stock to run up a bit. Mm-hmm. And then today's the first day that paper comes free trading, mm-hmm. and it's I think I saw it go by to $83 here a minute ago.
Did you see the press release that they put out? Did you listen to Ricky talking about the news? Yes.
Today.
So they just signed a deal with Authentic Brands, which is no slouch in the global brand department.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, okay, I did see that.
Which committed them to write a check for $100 million.
No problem.
And up to $250 million total consideration in stock and cash based on certain milestones achieved. But I think more than anything, like if you were a company, like these guys have demonstrated market crafty. 101
acumen.
Exactly, acumen, not craftiness, acumen.
Yeah, acumen, craftiness,
that's got a negative connotation.
You see some foxes sitting at the table or
around the chicken coop going sharpening their knives. No, but so everything they've done is demonstrated a high level of market sophistication. So here's the day they know that they might have a few shareholders who want to get off. What do? They announce an expenditure. And there's in no uncertain terms, an expenditure is always perceived by shareholders as a negative.
Right.
I mean...
Okay, so now you're saying, well, is it dropping because of the expenditure?
Well, exactly. Is it dropping because some guys are selling stock because they can, or is it dropping because this perceived $250 million hit to the balance sheet over time?
Yeah, management is market savvy.
Exactly. So this is the thing. Now... I have no doubt that there's more to this story with Authentic Brands than meets the eye because you don't commit to a $100 million spend.
This went by at $83.10.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So, but again, I think this is going to be now when people start to understand what the Authentic Brands relationship means. Yeah, it's a $250 million hit to the pocketbook over time.
Yeah.
But what is the accretive add to the sales of Tilray in that time frame? That's what's going to be interesting. That's where time will tell, and that's where we have a very interesting little known fact about cannabis. And when we come back, you'll be gone, and Keith Merker from WeedMD will be here.
Okay.
Woohoo!
The word marijuana comes from a Mexican slang term for cannabis and is believed to have derived from the Spanish pronunciation of the names Mary and Jane. The two names were also common Mexican military slang for a prostitute or brothel. Americans began using the term marijuana in the late 1800s. Then, in the early 20th century, anti-cannabis factions began popularizing the word marijuana in an attempt to underscore the drug's Mexican origin. It was meant to play off of anti-immigrant sentiments.
If you want to look ridiculous. Hey, guess who's here? It's Keith Merker, CEO of WeedMD. Keith, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
Keith, it's 2019. New year, new set of regulations in the United States, rules changing all across Canada. We're going to have beer, we're going to have drinks, we're going to have physical stores in Ontario, assuming that these people get it together. What is going to change for WeedMD in 2019? A nice preamble, eh?
Holy cow.
You didn't even give me any warning about that.
Where do you want me to start?
Okay. Listen, the list is embarrassingly long?
No, it's not even that. So fundamentally, it's all systems go. The platform that we are creating that's now one of the most prolific production platforms in the industry and will continue to be so as we expand across it, is the most important thing. So let's forget about the noise and the hoopla and all the other things that are happening out there. That is where our numbers are coming from this year. And I believe that 2019 is the year of the number.
The year of the number.
The year of the number. The year of the metric. The year that things like this suddenly, holy cow.
I took the words right out of your mouth.
Income statement.
Ooh, income statement.
Cash flow. Let me tease you.
These are
EBITDA.
I don't even know what that means anymore.
EBITDA, tomato. Listen, this is where the industry is going from, I think, from the fundamental standpoint. WeedMD is well positioned for that. When we go beyond that, we're looking to create interesting partnerships so that we don't take our eyes off of that core competency in cultivation and extraction that we've built and have well in hand. The rest of these pieces, yeah, we're going to play there, but we're going to play there in ways that, again, we don't take our eye off the ball, but we find interesting partners to work with. Let's take an example, Pita Pit. We just announced a partnership with Pita Pit a couple of days ago. Yeah.
That was really interesting. I've got a Pita Pit on the corner near my house. I'm like, great, we eat sandwiches.
It's not necessarily going to be that. And we've definitely taken the brunt of a few comments along the way about Pita Pit or Pita Pot. So I'll just preempt that. But that being said, this is a very interesting partnership between two great Canadian companies. Pita Pit's been around for a long time. They've done a they've got a very successful operation. They've expanded to 220 stores in Canada. There's another 400 odd stores internationally, including in the US, and great operators.
Peter Piper picked a peck of Pita Pits.
Keep going. No, but so the aspect here is not just to, like, we're not going to be flipping your local Pita Pit to a cannabis store anytime soon.
Oh, okay.
The concept is, how do we take all the wonderful things WeedMD's got to bring to the table in cannabis knowledge, regulatory compliance knowledge, and so on and so forth, and combine that with another great entity that has a platform that they've developed very successfully in retail, dealing with landlords and franchisee networks and all the vendors and supply chains that they needed to put into place in order to make their business successful, and put them together to create an all-Canadian great platform that wants to work with like-minded partners in the retail space in cannabis, because cannabis retail is going to be a hard thing, a hard nut to crack, and I think people are already realizing that. Retail is hard enough to begin with. You add in the layers of complexity in regulations and in security and compliance and licensing, and they're going to need friends. They're going to want friends. That's the premise of what we've put together with Pita Pit.
I see. Okay, interesting. You know, the retail situation in the United States is a good sort of precursor, a sort of a crucible of experimentation of what's going to come in Canada. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, and after much peregrination through the dispensaries in America, that the general level of the quality of product is very low. Very low. And very low. And I think that's one of the great opportunities for entities like WeedMD, who turn out a consistently superior product that is always, you know, I've been experimenting, and so I know that is always presented in the appropriate frame of perishable window, because a lot of companies don't realize that cannabis dried flower is a perishable, and so one of the criticisms I have in the Canadian context is that a lot of the cannabis that's on the shelves of the provincial distributors in particular has been there a little bit too long and has been subject to a little bit too much dehumidification, and so by the time it ends up in your pipe where you want to smoke it, it's so dry that it basically starts on fire.
Yeah, it was a bit of a catch-22 for some folks who were trying to be super prepared well in advance of the product calls from the provincial agencies, and so they were packaging their product as far back as last spring, and so then it's sitting in a container up until the fall when it's sold, and then who knows when it's consumed from there. You're not wrong.
Yeah. So my question, that's my long-winded opening to the question is, so how does WeedMD stay ahead of that curve and sort of, because to me that's what's going to win the day in the hearts and minds of the consumers of the cannabis, is like, who can deliver high-quality cannabis in an appropriate window of a perishable product?
Yeah, and so obviously we're talking about dried flower here specifically, because those same factors don't play into extracts, for instance, of course. look, I mean, it's again going back to my earlier comments. It's keeping your eye on the ball, staying focused on what you do best. I think we've carved out a niche and a name for ourselves in dried flower as a premium producer that's brought to the market in the provincial agencies at affordable prices. And as we expand our cultivation platform and are able to deliver more and more of this, it's just rinse and repeat. I mean, we're just expanding on the same principles that we've already put into place and successfully executed on. And so we keep doing that, and people are going to keep coming back and buying our product.
Right. Interesting. Okay, so then in terms of the universe of new products that are being allowed into the marketplace, we're going to see beverages this year, we're going to see edibles this year. Does WeedMD have a strategy already in place for all of that?
We do. And so there's, I'm not going to give you a ton of specifics, but I'll give you some teasers.
Okay, I like teasers.
So, I mean, we announced a ways back a partnership with a group called Favita in the beverage space.
Yep.
And so Favita is a listed company here in Canada, and they're rolling out a CBD line of beverages in the US right now. And we'll be bringing that, transplanting it, and rolling it out here in Canada using the WeedMD distribution platform and obviously inputs. And so that's one area where we have it covered by virtue of a partnership with a very successful group of operators that we're very pleased to be working with. Here's another example. So not too long ago, we partnered with a lab in Montreal. So a guy named Domenico Fuoco is now our Chief Innovation Officer. And this is a guy who kind of had me at hello when he started talking about, I'll give you packaging as an example. So got very excited that you saw the passion light up in his eyes when he starts talking about packaging for topicals as just one random example. So that's the kind of guy I want to get involved with. Someone who's thinking through, he's a scientist at heart, but truly knows how to get a product from the bench to the market and all the pieces that you need to put into place to make that happen, and has a specific niche in topicals. So you can imagine that's another category that we'll want to play in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just to give you a couple of examples, and again, you can see the MO behind those go back to my first comments, which are, it's not WeedMD trying to take over the world with all these different endeavors.
Right.
It's finding the right partners to work with so that we can focus again on our core competencies.
I see. So more partnerships like the one with Pita Pit are on the horizon in 2019?
I would assume so, yeah.
Okay. Forward-looking statements notwithstanding. Great. So then where do you see the biggest opportunity in the whole global matrix of cannabis opportunities for WeedMD in this upcoming year?
Again, I'll revert back at the risk of sounding repetitive.
I think I just asked the same question for the third time. That's your polite way of saying I'm repeating myself.
Not at all, not at all. But listen, I'm happy to drive this home all day.
Sure.
And that is, we're going to put up some numbers based on the cultivation platform that we're successfully rolling out right now. And when you take away all the bells and whistles and hoopla from this industry, what's going to matter at the end of the day to investors? Show me the money.
Right. Okay, well that's pretty much best case scenario from an investment perspective. Great. Okay, Keith, well, let's leave it there for now. We'll come back to you very soon, and we're going to keep an eye on the balance sheet. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
And when we come back, Edward Milewski is going to be here. Earlier, Ed spoke to one of the 25 lucky lottery winners who had been granted a cannabis retail license, and here's the conversation he had.
We've got a real interesting interview here today. Clint Seukeran is one of the winners of the retail cannabis lottery in Brampton. Clint, how are you? This is Ed Milewski.
Hi, Ed. I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So you're already in business. You own a business, CGS Foods, a coconut water importing company. So you're already a businessman, and you have an MBA from Guelph. So what was your reaction when you found out that you're one of the lucky winners? Because a lot of people applied for this.
Oh yeah, quite a few people applied. Absolutely, I was in shock. At first I thought it was some spam or some junk mail that was being sent out to all the applicants. Everybody was getting this letter, and I was just skimming through it. I said, look at how much they went through to try to fool me, and
what they went through to try to fool me. That's funny.
So, and my brother was sitting next to me, Christoph, and I said, Chris, take a look at this. Does this look real? And he went through, and then he said, oh yeah, there's the letter, and he opened it, and he said, yes, this looks real. So I said, okay, give me that.
So
Wow.
they notified you by mail?
By email, yes.
By email, okay. Wow. Wow. Yeah. So go ahead.
It was first trying to validate that this email was real, and when we saw the attached letter with the seals and everything, then it began to, and I was just elated. I was so happy. I just really was, I felt really blessed to be chosen to partake in this new kind of.
Yeah, well, that's great. So what are you thinking here? Are you when you win this license, there's a number of things you have to do. Like they give you some deadlines, right? Like you have to do this by this date. You have to do this. Now, what about like financing? I mean, is there a lot of money involved, you think, in setting this up? Will the banks be willing to help you, or will you have to figure out financing, or maybe you've already got the funding lined up?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. The thing is, it's essentially a project we have to manage. We have deadlines, and we have the financial requirements for those deadlines. The one I'm focusing on right now is the 5-day deadline, which is coming up, quickly approaching on Friday. So we're trying to read those short-term requirements. They are a bit tedious, to say the least, to achieve those things in such a short time frame. Seeing that I didn't really expect to win. If I expected to win, sure, I would have had everything listed. Everything would have been ready, sitting on my desk, ready for submission. But I didn't expect to win, just like, I'm sure 50, the other 25 as well, at 24, didn't expect to win as well. So it's really that uphill battle trying to get everything ready in time, but I'm well equipped to do it. The banks, however, have been somewhat of an encumbrance. The large banks don't seem to be willing, or the banks that I work with don't seem to be willing to enter the cannabis space or fund or even open accounts for people in the cannabis space. So that is an issue. In terms of funding, funding is, we're talking about one retail store. No, we're not talking about hundreds of millions of dollars.
Right.
We're talking about one
store
to open in GTA. So the funding really isn't that difficult to acquire or to secure. And that's not the issue right now. The real issue is compliance.
Now, I understand that if you wanted to, you could sell this license. Is that right? Is that a...
No, that would be inaccurate. There is a prohibition on selling the license. I'm not sure when is the expiry date.
Okay.
But okay. I'm not at all interested in selling this license.
No, of course. Okay, good. So and I understand here. I'm reading here where you want to do something good and create something beautiful and fantastic for Ontario.
That's right. Before I won this lottery, as it's called, I was engaged in health food. I really want to do something that's substantial and beautiful, something that we can be proud of. I produce coconut water as well. I have two companies, one in Canada and one in the Dominican Republic. The Dominican Republic company manufactures the products that I envision.
Okay.
And one of them is pure, raw, natural coconut water. So we're not pasteurized and all of these other things. So we try to keep it real and authentic. So this entrance into this market now allows me to extend my reach with my vision. So what I want to do is essentially, extend my my products and my different, into the market.
Have you been approached by any marijuana companies at this point?
Oh, absolutely.
So you're probably getting a lot of people trying to contact you to talk about expansion or helping you accomplish your goals.
Absolutely, but that's nothing.
So what are some of the questions they're asking you?
Well, they really want to figure out, what are my plans? How can they fit into my plans? If we have similar visions, similar missions, that's what they're really trying to investigate. What is my position right now to see if there's any opportunity for us to work together.
Now, are you considering doing like some kind of a joint venture, or I guess it's probably pretty early. I mean, you probably have so many possible alternatives in terms of how to do it. You know, would you be allowed to take on a partner?
In terms of that, you know, I really haven't investigated the laws enough, and I can't really comment to that. But I've always been someone who engages all the stakeholders. So I'm not about, you know, just doing my thing solo and in isolation. I know nothing about the market. I want to engage as many people as I can and assess each opportunity individually and see which one is the best fit for me and which one is the best fit for my vision. What else do they bring to the table? Everybody's bringing money. What else can we bring to create something that create value at the triple bottom line? I don't just want to look at the economic benefit. Social and environmental benefit must also be part of the equation here with this opportunity, especially as we're new and we're starting off the industry. Let's do it right.
It sounds like you got a pretty good head on your shoulders. I think you're taking a very good approach to it. I really do, because there's more to, obviously more to life than just the financial aspect. There's a lot involved here.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And I think, you know, ever since entering business, I really learned that, you know, I don't want to sound bad, but capitalism really does not allow niceness. You know, you have to be very harsh and very hard to succeed. And, you know, I have always been one to try to show that that is not an absolute fact. Yeah, we can do good.
You're in a position to help people here as well. You know, and helping people is a noble cause.
Yeah, thank you. Well, you know, that's where I derive most of my satisfaction, from seeing the good that I do and the butterfly effect of it. The magnification of that effect is much more potent than me securing, you know, millions of dollars and growing my business. The magnification of doing other things also brings benefit to society and to me and to business as well. You build a lot of reputational capital, you build credibility. These things are also critical to business success.
Well, that's great, Clint. I really think you got a good head on your shoulders. Absolutely.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We're going to leave it there, and you know, we may reach out to you again in the near future. And if you have any questions about strategy, or you want some independent advice, feel free to contact us. We're here.
Absolutely, I appreciate it.
Okay.
I appreciate the offer very much. It was a pleasure speaking with you, sir.
Thank you, Clint.
Interesting conversation, Ed. I mean, I find it very intriguing that the lottery winner is not really interested in selling. He's not interested in bringing on a...
This guy appears to be genuinely interested in doing a good job.
Great. Well,
and
that's awesome.
I would say that the stars lined up, awarded him a license.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna try and make a point to contact him.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like he's got a history in business. He's got an MBA. Yeah. He's got money.
Yeah. He's a businessman.
So does he have any idea where he's going to put his store at?
In Brampton.
In Brampton?
Yeah.
Brampton.
That's where he got the license.
Well, that's where he lives.
But I think he was allocated for the city of Brampton, this license.
Oh, is that how it works?
Oh, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm in error.
Could be. You were in error about being able to sell the license, apparently.
Well, I didn't make that up. Someone told me that.
That was me.
And I said, "Can you sell their license?"
Well,
and the people are saying you can sell it to people in
Netherlands,
in Mexico.
Yeah, okay. We got to get to the bottom of that.
Let's get to the bottom of it.
Well, instead of just parroting other people's bullshit, we'll get to the bottom of it.
You know what? Yeah.
Now, I want to know
parroting. I like that word.
Parroting, yeah,
like a parrot.
Probably want a cracker. Just give me a goddamn cracker. I don't want any stock. Just give me a cracker.
No, I think it's now Paulie want a reefer.
Paulie want a reefer. Yeah, good point.
No, he seems like a real good guy. Good guy, like you say, business experience.
Yeah. Now, there's some interesting scuttlebutt going on here in the conversations in the chat on YouTube, and they are generally around the idea that, are these lottery winners really just objectively, truly fair and even lottery winners?
Or were they culled?
Well, were they selected by another criteria? Were they selected by, were they manually selected by people who had a mandate to pick people according to certain criteria, i.e. government people trying to fill some kind of quota of their own construction? Or are these actually legitimate, winners in the most random sense of the word? Now, the way to figure that out is obviously going to be to get the list of winners and look at their application forms, if that's going to be a possibility. Nick Dushko says that we should partner up with this guy and open a store together. Nick, that's a fabulous idea. However, we've got another strategy for our own retail operations globally, don't we, Ed?
Yep.
Yeah, in fact, you're going to be able to go to store.midasletter.com soon enough, and you're going to see some pretty interesting Midas Letter swag and gear there that will be very conducive to the consumption of cannabis products globally. Anyways, coming up shortly, now correct me if I'm maybe mistaken here, but I haven't heard from God lately in my... Oh, but you know what, Ed, our day is moving so quickly here, it's really mind-blowing. It's time to have some trivia, because no day is complete without it.
All right, let's test your knowledge. Some people think magic mushrooms are the next thing headed toward legalization. Yeah, they do. And did you know that shrooms, a psychedelic fungi, may have been used as far back as 9000 BC? They contain the psychotropic psilocybin. Magic mushrooms are one of the most widely used psychotropic drugs because they can be found in the wild, and let's face it, growing them is easy and cheap. They also have a long history of being used in religious and spiritual ceremonies. So the question we have for you is, what other drug is closest to mushrooms? Is it A, heroin, B, hash, C, LSD, A, heroin, B, hash, C, LSD, or D, candy floss? We'll give you the answer a little later in the show.
That's an interesting question. I can't see how any of those answers would be anywhere near accurate, but that is not what we care about right now. Matt Bottomley is here. He's a research analyst with Canaccord Genuity. Matt, welcome back.
Good to see you again.
You too. Matt, it's 2019. Different crop of cannabis stories out there, though some are the same. What is the main thrust of your interest in 2019 in the cannabis space?
Well, a lot of the companies that came to market in Q3, Q4 of 2018 that are U.S. operators, I think are going to have a ton of news flow, a ton of new licenses that are going to be issued in the U.S. Execution is going to be a big story. So obviously the Canopies of the world and those companies have a ton on their plate as well, and they still are the largest companies, cannabis companies in the world. I expect them to continue to execute internationally, as well as giving more color on what they're actually selling into the Canadian recreational markets, but there's another 20 or 30 sub-markets within the U.S. that's very, very difficult to follow, and it's kind of what takes up a lot of my time now. And there's probably 5, 6, or 7 companies that have come to market on the U.S. side that are all clamoring for positions in markets like Florida and New York and Pennsylvania and Ohio. And I think those are the stories that are going to get a lot of traction this year. I think the relative valuations of many of these U.S. cannabis operators that are listed in Canada are a lot more compelling, and I think you're going to see a lot of very impressive revenue and EBITDA run rates sooner with these U.S. names compared to the Canadian licensed producers.
Interesting. Some of the larger U.S. MSOs came to market with the valuation that you might think they would have to backfill with actual, real estate and sales and dispensaries in key markets. Do you think that some of them are going to find that challenging, or do you think that for the most part the U.S. MSOs are well positioned to fan out across the available marketplace and dominate?
Well, I think all cannabis companies, regardless of the markets that they're going after, there is that element of backfilling where execution is going to be a very, very, very significant element in order to justify any valuation in the billion-dollar-plus club. And there's many companies that fit that bill now. But if you add up the aggregate market capitalization of all the U.S. players right now, it's probably in Canadian dollars somewhere in the realm of 15 billion or lower. On the Canadian side, and admittedly there is international optionality to huge medical markets where we still need more clarity on, but The Canadian licensed producers have an aggregate market cap of $75 billion. So if you look at just the domestic opportunity in Canada versus the domestic opportunity in the U.S., it's much, much more attractive south of the border. We're having some of the hemp businesses start to open up now with the passing of the Farm Bill, and the Canadians aren't precluded from that. But really, you have 7, 8, or 9, or whatever the number is, of large-scale multi-state operators that right now could re-rate from that $15 billion in aggregate, potentially as high or higher than where the Canadian names are now. So I think execution, as I said, is going to be critical, but I also think there might be a natural valuation re-rating, as U.S. companies might be the first ones to say, hey, we're at $500 million revenue run rates, or whatever the number is, well before the Canopies of the world. So I think a re-rating is much more likely in 2019 for the U.S. players.
Wow. So I think it's safe to say that in the case of the Canadian incumbent large caps, this is the year that they're rated on the balance sheet, more so than the speculative value that has characterized their valuation increase to date.
Sure. I mean, the intangible value of all the markets they're going to get into is very, very important. I mean, we have licensed producers right now with valuations of 15 billion plus. So we now see Constellation with 5 billion plus on the Canopy rather with 5 billion plus on the balance sheet. Altria made an investment in Kronos. So they're very, very strong balance sheets right now. I expect there to be more strategic players coming into the space. But you're absolutely right. In order for the aggregate market capitalization I mentioned of, let's say, it's 75 billion in Canada to be justified and then also have further upside, you're going to have to see a ton of execution in Canada. You're going to have to see pricing maintained, and you eventually in the next 2 or 3 years are going to have to see meaningful contribution come from international markets, else the valuations just aren't justifiable.
You bet. So this is one of the areas where I hear from a lot of people that suggest that the real discount is in the US MSOs listed in Canada. And then on the other hand, the Canadian that they're not multi-state operators, they're multi-country operators, which is an opportunity that's generally the U.S. MSOs are excluded from because of the federal prohibition restrictions. Do you think that these, like for example, Canopy, Aurora, Afria, CanTrust, to a lesser degree, some other ones, are very sort of well positioned now in terms of the global opportunity, and is 2019 going to see a situation where those international opportunities do start to become major contributors to the balance sheet, in your opinion?
Yes, I don't think it's about 2019. I think it's about 2019 to 2029 in terms of this entire global opportunity starting to roll out. Some countries will be sooner rather than later. Germany, although it's been delayed for some time now, will probably be one of the first major countries out of Europe to start having meaningful contributions and domestic cultivation awards and production awards given. But I think you have to look at the international market as, you have Canadian medical that's sort of, this big, then you have rec, and then the global, and it's all going to take much more time the bigger the opportunity is. So 2019 is going to be much more important than 2018 when it comes to execution, because now we're going to see real revenues, we're going to see profitability. It's a bit of the show me story. But in terms of there being, I say Canopy as an example just because they're the largest. In terms of Canopy having a revenue line that's 50% Canada and 50% international, I think it's going to take several years for that to happen.
Sure. We had Namaste as a guest here earlier. Sean Dollinger was here, and he's sort of made this case that they're in a sort of separate track, in that they're pursuing this technology online marketplace sort of angle of the whole cannabis thing. Do you think some of those other business models are going to be able to sort of keep up with the mega valuations that are being allocated to the multi-state and multi-country operators?
Well, maybe. It's a case-by-case basis, but at the end of the day, particularly with the companies that are selling cannabis product directly, that translates at some level to an EBITDA, that translates to a cash flow, and that is what's going to support the valuations. There isn't going to be a lot of subjectivity or ambiguity once the market starts to mature, or at least not as much, because at the end of the day, this sector is going to trade something like a consumer branded market once it transitions to that, and that's a 12 times. Maybe there's a premium because there's higher barriers to entry, so maybe a 15 times multiple ultimately at maturity. So it's going to be the fundamental underlying EBITDA and cash flow that support that. If there's another company like Namaste or others that are doing parallel plays, whether it's technology, whether it's delivery, whether it's data analytics, whatever it is, I think it's to the same regard. All boats are going to float to a degree, and then it's going to be those who execute, and then those that can actually show it in their quarter-over-quarter results.
Sure. And finally, proliferation of companies focused on the biopharma or pharmaceutical opportunity, whereas, you know, in the context of GW Pharma, who is focusing on extracting certain molecules, concentrating them, and applying them towards specific remedies for the human illnesses, and creating value through that sort of pharmaceutification of cannabis. How much of an opportunity is that relative to the recreational and otherwise medicinal?
Well, I mean, it's the golden goose to a degree. It's a significant opportunity if you can get you know, FDA-approved backing, and you can get IP and exclusivity on certain things. It's very hard with the plant, right? The plant itself you can't patent. My opinion is everyone is likely working on this very diligently, but I think much like we saw Constellation and from Big Alcohol and Altria from Big Tobacco come into the space, I think it's going to be the strategic investors in the pharmaceutical company that bring that over the goal line. So at some point, and I think they might even be the last to the party when it comes to investing.
Right.
At some point in the next year or two, whatever it is, I believe you'll see big pharma come into this space, and I believe their infrastructure, their global reach, their you know, decades and decades of experience doing clinical trials is likely what's going to bring that over. So it's a huge market opportunity,
right,
but it's also the most speculative in a speculative industry.
Sure. Novartis put a big chunk of money into Tilray. Do you think that the biggest of the so you kind of got to exclude Canopy from that potentiality because they've already got their big dance partner in Constellation. But Aurora, in particular, has yet to sort of demonstrate a solidifying partnership across a mega cap player in any of food and beverage, biopharma, or consumer packaged goods. Do you think that makes Aurora a prime target for some of these mega cap companies?
Well, I think Aurora is by far the next target on the list if I had to handicap who's next. When you think of the big players in the space, there's kind of five, right? You have Canopy that has a partner, you have Tilray that kind of has a partner. There could be still others they bring in, some of them are in joint venture form. Then you have Kronos that got a dance partner, Aphria that right now obviously is going through what it's going through. Leaving Aurora, I think with Aurora there's a lot that they've done. I mean, they had an acquisition this week as well of Whistler Medical Cannabis. You know, there's a lot of acquisitions that company's done. There's a lot of integration of 7 or 8 deals, so that might complicate it when it comes to a strategic coming into the market. But if I had to guess who the next likely candidate would be, or who the most attractive candidate is that does not have yet a global strategic partner, my bet would be on Aurora.
You bet. All right, Matt, we're going to leave it there for now and come back to you soon again. Your insight, as usual, is much appreciated. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you.
All right, we come back. Ed Milewski will be here. We're going to talk about the market wrap, and we're going to wade through some of the questions from our viewers. And we're going to start right away with Reefer Al Joint. And but before I do that, we're going to have the answer to the trivia question. Duh.
Earlier in the show, we talked about magic mushrooms, and with some people pushing for psilocybin, better known as magic mushrooms, to be legalized, we asked you, what drug are shrooms closest to? Was the answer A, heroin, B, hash, C, LSD, or D, candy floss? The answer is LSD. Both are psychotropics that work on the central nervous system, and the difference is, while LSD causes actual hallucinations, at least that's what people tell me, mushrooms technically don't. Instead, they distort the perception of actual objects. LSD was the drug of choice for a generation of flower children. In fact, comedian Stephen Wright once asked, if God dropped acid, would he see people?
Ed, have you ever done magic mushrooms?
Yes.
Have you ever done LSD?
No.
You've never done LSD?
No.
Are you kidding me?
No.
In your whole life?
Why do you think I'm still smart?
Well, no. I mean, when I was a youngster, I mean, eating copious quantities of acid was the thing.
I missed it because of my age, I think.
Oh.
I think I missed it.
What are you talking about? You were primed for that. Allen Ginsberg, Neil Cassidy.
Yeah, but I didn't live in New York.
Well, yeah, close by. London is basically the epicenter of cultural and financial economic development.
London, England.
Oh, you don't live in London, England, then? What's wrong with you,
well,
mate?
Maybe I do because there is a Thames River there.
There is a Thames River there, and it's just as dirty as a Thames River that runs through London. A river runs through it.
Yeah. Anyway. Well,
anyways,
what are you thinking? What are you thinking there, matey?
Well, we've had some great conversations today. It was very interesting to have Namaste, who is very much sort of said, you know what, we're not going to go down that LP path. We're not going to try to become a medical LP supplier of cannabis. We're going to focus on our niche, this technological online everything store, the Amazon of cannabis gear. Now these guys have the biggest head start in that space. I don't see anybody else there doing it. So we've had Namaste here, who's arguably the leader. You got to think
if that's, and I'm not arguing with you, but I'm saying if that's true, that's a spectacular advantage.
They're in 20 countries. Amazon is in 20 countries. Similarities? $1 trillion business? Not that I'm saying, do I own Namaste today? Not today, but I can tell you, I will be making some investments in Namaste because I'm pretty sure I'm going to make them my client because we think they're going to be in the top 10. Neptune Wellness, also Jim Hamilton was here with the whole idea of providing pharma and food grade extracted cannabinoid products to suppliers, to purveyors of of every product that's going to be a cannabinoid product. On behalf of the manufacturers who might not have that expertise in-house, that's an interesting angle. So I've been loving the variety today in our guests.
Yeah, the banter.
The banter.
It makes the time go by faster.
Spectacular banter. Question, Pedro Lopez says, is the Wayland deal announced today with ICC a good one? That deal has got me
flummoxed?
Flummoxed. Yeah, because...
You look flummoxed.
Do I look flummoxed? We're going to find out tomorrow.
Okay.
Because Ben Ward's going to be here tomorrow. And we're going to ask him point blank. So this is interesting. Wayland just announced that they're going to divide their company into the international opportunity and the domestic opportunity. And now they've taken basically 50% of the international assets and offloaded them for 300 million shares of international. It's called ICC International Cannabis Corp. It is not the ICC International Cannabis Corp that Aurora bought.
Right.
Bit of a bait and switch there, which the people behind this company are not, unknown for. I recall Cannabis Wheaton. And so it's kind of an intriguing strategy. But for 300 million shares of a stock that's trading at 45 cents, call it 50 cents, so 100, like what?
150?
What? Yeah, what's that valuation? So this is the thing, I think the market is sitting there having the reaction much like I am and going like, what? The international assets are worth 225 million, call it?
Really?
Yeah.
Jesus.
And I would say that if you look at the international assets, yeah, I think it's I don't know if it's a good deal for Canopy yet, or rather for Wayland, or a good deal for Worldwide Cannabis Corp. It's all a question mark at this point. So
well, let's take a look. Let's do a chart.
Let's do a chart, will you?
Okay.
Let's take a look at how Wayland. It obviously went well for Wayland.
Now I got to apologize here.
Why?
Because
what'd you do?
I have no active session now. Why is that?
You have no active session? Here, I'll pull up a chart. How about that?
Do you know how?
Do I know how, Ed?
It's been a long time
since charts. We're going to look at Wayland. Wayland actually touched a high today of $1.60 something. Hold on here.
WA.
Okay, there's the Wayland chart. I'm going to make it full screen. Yeah, big day today. Oh, there's no NDI. Oh, look at that. It's me. Look at it on the screen.
You?
Here.
Okay.
Yeah, look.
All right.
Okay, so look at this. Here's the day today. Let's go intraday and see. So the stock opened up way up there at $1.63. So I suspect, usually when you see this means that the news broke in Europe before Canada opened. So all of the enthusiasm for Wayland's sale of the international assets was realized in Europe. And then the Canadian sellers woke up and said, whoa, 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 whoa.
And I think as the day wore on, there was a lot of the other issues sold off, and that may have pulled that one down as well.
Yeah. Yeah. But so I think that the jury is still out. This could be a major catalyst to the upside for Wayland, though it could be a major catalyst to the downside because we don't know yet what does that leave them with. Does that just leave them with the Canadian assets? And I don't have enough insight on that deal. And certainly we're going to get the full story from Ben Ward tomorrow, which is going to be fantastic.
Good.
Yeah. Another stock that traded like a banshee today was Weed. So let's look at our old friends Weed. Pulling Weed up now.
Are you doing it again, or should I do it now?
Yeah. Well, there's Weed. I got it on mine here. Problem is we can't draw on it on mine.
No, I know. But
I can put these little crosshairs over things.
But that's just a daily.
No, this is the intraday. This is the intraday. This
I'm
is
sorry.
today.
That's a 1 day.
Yeah. So it closed down dramatically, but it was as high as today.
Put up a 5 day or a 6 day.
Let's go with a 1 year. How about that?
Yeah, that's what I say. 6 day.
1 year. Narrowing it down.
Yeah, let's just move them right along.
54.90. So it touched a high of what? Did it actually get to? Oh no. Okay, so this is back in. That's back in October. So that was the high, $76, $76.68, and it sold off since then. And now we're back up here, heading back in the right direction. But yeah, intraday it did okay. And anyways, so tomorrow, guess who's here? Ryan Brown is going to be here from the North Bud. North Bud was a company that we've been following from last year, but has gone kind of quiet. We're going to have Ben Ward is going to be here from Wayland Group, even though that's not up there. And then Scott Hurd, co-founder of Westleaf Cannabis, will be here. That's interesting. So, but that's quite the lineup. I'm really interested. I'm really excited to talk to Ben and get an understanding of this deal. So tune in tomorrow and see what's happening with that Wayland transaction. And join us tomorrow for more excitement. Don't forget to subscribe, like, you know, all that. Thank you. Bye.